What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Dineen, and on today's episode, we have a whole lot of WWE headlines, news, topics, call it what you want, to cover. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the location that was just announced for WWE Elimination Chamber 2024. Yet again, for the second consecutive year, WWE has taken the Chamber international. We're also going to be talking about Smackdown and how they've reached a new agreement, a brand new deal. They will be leaving Fox when October 2024 hits. That 5-year deal will be up, so they'll be heading elsewhere. Of course, we're going to be talking about the notorious Vince McMahon. He seems to be in the headlines a lot these days. And unfortunately, we have to talk about the WWE releases that took place on both Thursday morning into the early afternoon and, of course, Thursday evening. Very unfortunate. Nearly 24 men and women got cut from the roster. There was a few names in there that were very unexpected, especially because they had storylines currently going on within the company. So we're going to get to all that. So without further ado, I say we jump right into the WWE releases. Let's just tackle at least the first half of that happened earlier in the day, and then probably towards the end of this show, I'll talk about the second half. So it was probably around 9:30, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time when we started hearing about these cuts, these releases so suddenly, right? This was shortly after the announcement was just made about where the Elimination Chamber will be taking place, which I'm going to get into in just a little bit here. And everybody's like, wow, we just got this great news about the new location for Elimination Chamber next February. And then we get hit with this news via Twitter. It seemed like one talent after another was like, hey, I just got a call and I've been released. Or you read Sean Ross Sapp's Twitter account, or went to the Fightful account and found out, if you remember, over there that, hey, men and women are losing their jobs today. This is terrible news. It's been a very long time since WWE has done their roster cuts. So this thing started to happen again, 9:30, 10 a.m. on Thursday. And it was even said that around 11:30 a.m., Fightful heard that there were still many calls going on informing talent of their releases. Many in the company who would usually know didn't appear to know who would be subject to these releases. Now, in the past year or so, WWE has not publicly announced releases themselves, and in many cases never actually confirmed them. It was also said that there will be some cuts that will take place from the Performance Center as well. In fact, that is what happened. That was on the second set of cuts that took place Thursday evening, which we'll get to later in the show. But that did happen. Some NXT talent and some Performance Center people that are, working their way in, that were recently signed, trying to even get on NXT television. So we'll get to that. Now, there was some frustrations among members of the WWE roster once it was announced earlier in the day also that, SmackDown got a brand new deal. I'm about to just get into that in just a moment here. A $1.4 billion deal SmackDown landed again, and one top star specifically, not mentioned, said that most of the list of talent barely had a chance, considering they weren't even really booked on any of the shows, and called it a circle that could not be escaped. Now, talking about the whole Smackdown bit, one thing leads to the next, and I'm just going to give you that full report right now. It was said there was a statement that came out on Thursday that SmackDown returns to the USA Network as part of a 5-year agreement between WWE and NBC Universal. Coming from Stamford, Connecticut, again, September 21st, 2023. WWE, part of TKO Group Holdings, the whole Endeavor bit as of last Tuesday, last week, when Vince McMahon sold the company. And NBC Universal have agreed to a 5-year domestic media rights partnership that will bring Friday Night SmackDown back to USA Network beginning October 2024. Additionally, beginning in the 2024/25 season, WWE will produce 4 primetime specials per year that will air on NBC, marking the first time WWE will air on the network in prime time. Now, SmackDown will continue exclusively to NBCU as one of the television's longest-running programs, regularly rating as the #1 show in the 18 to 49 advertising demographic on Friday nights, and featuring many WWE superstars, including Cena, Reigns, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, and Rey Mysterio. Wrapping up here, NBC Universal has been a tremendous partner of WWE for decades. said WWE President Nick Khan. We are excited to extend this long-standing relationship by bringing SmackDown to USA Network on Friday nights and look forward to debuting multiple WWE special events annually on NBC as well. So that was that. That was the official statement that was made. That there we have it. That SmackDown will be leaving Fox as of next fall. 5-year deals up, and for $1.4 billion, heading back to the USA Network, where we've been watching Monday Night Raw and NXT the last couple of years as well, Monday and Tuesday nights. Now, it's been said, I'm not sure when the Monday Night Raw and NXT deals are up, or the renegotiating will be happening, but it's not necessarily a lock that they will remain with USA, which is kind of crazy because growing up as a kid, mid to late 90s, especially, the heyday of Raw's War, Warzone, etc. Raw and USA just seemed like the right thing, to happen. I know a few years later they went to Spike, TNN, etc. But I hope they don't leave USA. I hope they're able to work it out. I know that Amazon Prime and Disney were a few of the names mentioned in the last couple of days to potentially get a hold of Raw or NXT or both, and possibly be on those stations or those streaming services on those platforms as well. So I'm very interested and curious to see what happens as far as all that's concerned. Now I'm going to jump back to these releases, and I'm going to go over the first 9 or 10 that were announced on Thursday. But before I do that, I want to talk about the Elimination Chamber bit for a minute. So Saturday, February 24th, 2024, Elimination Chamber will be taking place in Australia. So WWE announces they'll return to Australia for the first time in 6 years for the Elimination Chamber, with Perth's 65,000-seater Optus Stadium to play host to the event. So that's a pretty big deal. Elimination Chamber making its way over to Australia. Again, it's been 6 years since they've had an event over there, which I don't even think was a premium live event or a pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe just I don't know, when they were just on tour, maybe house show type of deal. Maybe they did do a Raw or SmackDown type of deal over there. I'm not quite sure. But again, it's been a while, 6 years. So that's that. I'm going to reference the Elimination Chamber in a little bit because it has to do with, somebody that was unfortunately released on Thursday morning, was all excited for this specifically, and you're about to know why in just a little bit. So hold that thought. So there were a few names that were released. We were really caught off guard. I'm going to break down all of them in just a bit, but I'm going to go over the names and then I'll go one by one. So we had Dolph Ziggler, which was the most notable name. He's been with the company for basically the better part of 2 decades, starting with, the Spirit Squad. Mustafa Ali, Emma, her fiance, Riddick Moss, also was released. Then we had Rick Boogs, Elias, Aaliyah, Top Dollar, and Shelton Benjamin. So it was 9. It was 9 that were initially released, and there was 10 or 11 that were released later in the day. So let's talk about Dolph Ziggler for a minute, shall we? Dolph Ziggler, again, what a career the man has had. It's been absolutely amazing. Just a few notes here. He's had 1,554 TV matches for WWE, the third most in WWE's history. Again, to be exact, he spent 19 years with the company, 2-time World Heavyweight Champion, a 1-time NXT Champion, 6-time Intercontinental Champion, 2-time US Champ, 4-time Tag Team Champion, and a Money in the Bank winner in 2012. So as you can see, we know that Ziggler has not been utilized very well over the last 5 to 7 years at minimum. He won a title here and there, got some TV time here and there, but more times than not, he was getting jobbed out, squashed. He was on the losing end of things, being completely honest here. So, Ziggler getting released isn't completely a surprise. It's, for a lot of people, believe he's liberated. Maybe he could, whatever he has left remaining of his career, maybe he can go to an AEW where his brother is already at, Ryan Nemeth. He's already teased on social media and Twitter over the past few weeks and months how he would love to tag with his brother. And, as nice as that would be, I think it would be great for Dolph Ziggler to realistically have a strong singles run. I think he still is more than capable. I'm not opposed to him, going tag team in a tag team capacity with his brother. I think it's all well and good, but I think he's got a lot to prove still in a singles realm. So Big E, who came into WWE, the main roster coming up from NXT basically about 10 years ago, you got to remember he joined forces with both AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler. So Big E went on to tweet, "I was so immensely fortunate to start my time on the main roster next to Dolph Ziggler. I learned so many lessons about this craft by watching and listening. One of the smoothest workers I've ever been in the ring with. Thank you for everything you've done for me, Zigman. That was very nice. So many other friends and fans went on to show some support and love for Dolph Ziggler. Um, because they loved working with him. They were friends with him. Again, he's been with the company the better part of 2 decades, long-standing friendships, relationships, and so on. So hopefully he can revitalize his career elsewhere for however long he wants to wrestle. I think that would be great. Now, you know, I'm trying to think of Dolph in his singles capacity in the recent past when I really, enjoyed him. And I want to call it like a sense of his last significant run, right? I want to say it was 2016, 2017 when he was having those feuds with The Miz over the Intercontinental Championship. Those were some really good matches, whether it happened on weekly programming or at pay-per-views. I remember The Miz and Dolph Ziggler having some very good matches. Watching those two Cleveland boys go at it was very good. Also, if you take it back to SummerSlam 2016, I want to say that was probably the last time uh, Dolph Ziggler had an opportunity at the WWE Championship. I know he was going up against Dean Ambrose, who was champion at the time. Of course, he did not get the victory there. And I know in the midst of all that, back in late 2017, he won the United States Championship. And then I want to say spring, summer 2018, when Drew McIntyre came up from NXT, joined Ziggler. Ziggler was basically like the Shawn Michaels to his Diesel, and they won the Raw Tag Team Championships. So that was good. And then his most recent run or reign as champion, until he unfortunately went out due to was a neck fusion or back surgery about a year and a half ago, Robert Roode. He teamed up with Robert Roode for a couple of years. They ended up calling themselves the Dirty Dogs, and they were also tag team champions. I think they won the Raw and SmackDown tag titles at one time or another, so they had a decent run. But outside of that happening, Ziggler's kind of floundered ever since Roode left. If we ever saw him at all on television, he was usually taking an L. And so, again, shout out to Dolph Ziggler. He's great. I enjoy him greatly. He's done a lot for the business over the years. We all wish that he had a better push, a longer standing run or reign as champion. But, that's just the way it is, unfortunately. So before I get to Mustafa Ali, I want to read some words of encouragement from a guy who knows what it's like getting released just a few years ago from WWE after having a very long tenure there, that being formerly known as Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, who absolutely has probably to date, outside of Cody, of course, reinvented himself so good that he is the king of the indies. He's winning gold everywhere, not just in the United States, but internationally as well. So Matt Cardona wrote, "To those who are just released, this can be the end in capital letters of your career, or it can be the beginning, also in caps. Look yourself in the mirror and decide. I promise you the work and the money is out there. It's not easy, it's a grind, it's a hustle, it's frustrating, but it can also be incredibly rewarding in more ways than one if you work your ass off. I hope to see a lot of you down the road." Now, also who tweeted after that, Steph DeLander, formerly known as Persia Perota, who used to be on NXT. She got cut a little over a year ago. And it's funny, once Chelsea Green was picked up by WWE again, that being Matt Cardona's wife, of course, Chelsea and Matt kind of ran the indies the last couple of years. So Steph DeLander kind of filled in for Chelsea in the sense of being Matt's sidekick. And she went on the right. Getting released by WWE can be the best thing or the worst thing to happen to your career. The choice is yours, and my success proves that. So, another nice message, nice note, some vote of confidence. Not all hope is lost when you leave WWE. I know that for a lot of people, a lot of talent, that is the be all, end all. And I understand, growing up as an avid WWF, WWE fan, but that's not the only show in town, especially these days. So you can't lose all hope. Now, with that being said, we're going to move over to Mustafa Ali. All right, we're going to move over to Mustafa Ali, and then after that, I think we're going to be able to blow through the rest of this list relatively quickly. Mustafa Ali, the main reason I was concerned about him being released so suddenly was he's supposed to have an NXT North American Championship match next weekend against Dominic Mysterio. He was just on the most recent episode of NXT this past Tuesday, as I spoke about how upset he was that Dominic's defending the North American Championship this Monday on Raw against Dragon Lee. He's like, what's that all about? I'm the number one contender. This should not be happening. And he said he was going to address them at Monday Night Raw coming up. That obviously is not going to be taking place, nor will this match, which is very unfortunate. I was really looking forward to seeing this match. This was a great opportunity for him reinvigorating himself a little bit the last couple of months on NXT with feuds with Wes Lee, Tyler Bate, etc., getting some matches in, Dominic Mysterio. And now this suddenly, poof, goes away like smoke. So, Ali, I believe, was the first tweet that I had even seen before I even, caught on to this being a thing, that releases were actually happening. I thought this was an isolated incident. Maybe his contract ran out. Maybe he just parted ways. We've known in the past Ali has voiced his displeasure with WWE on Twitter just a year or two ago. Ended up returning to the company, or at least getting booked again on the shows. And so he wrote, "I am no longer working with WWE. I look forward to the future. Thank you." And so that was what Ali had written. And I was like, that's when I got really caught off guard. And then I went to Sean Ross Sapp's Twitter, and then I said, oh my God, this is like a full blown thing, that wrestlers are getting released left and right. So yeah, that's just terrible news, that's happening. Now, let's talk about 2019 real quick in regards to Mustafa Ali, and how I believe that was supposed to be really what would jumpstart his career on the main roster when it comes to just him getting gold or being in big time matches. Let's take it back to 2019, February 2019 specifically. This is right before Kofi Mania began, and this is how it kind of began. Going back to February 12th, 2019 article, it says, it was announced on Tuesday's edition of Smackdown Live that Kofi Kingston will be replacing Mustafa Ali in the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship. And then it said that, per Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio at that time, Ali suffered a concussion at a house show in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now that was a big deal because that was the start of Kofi Mania. Although Daniel Bryan did win that Elimination Chamber match, Kofi really started gaining momentum. The first time he was in an Elimination Chamber match since 2010. He didn't win that one either. But then, he caught on like wildfire. All the fans were behind him. And long story short, Kofi Mania, WrestleMania 35, he defeated Daniel Bryan, became the WWE World Champion. And so that be that. But what was very interesting is I also happened to stumble upon an article in regards to Mustafa Ali from a couple years ago, right? This was 2021, it was dated. So 2 years after Money in the Bank. Mustafa Ali was in that Money in the Bank match where Brock Lesnar ended up surprising everybody at the end and coming out and winning. So the headline of this article was, Mustafa Ali reveals that he was meant to win Money in the Bank in 2019. WWE superstar Mustafa Ali recounted the moment he was informed that Brock Lesnar would be winning the 2019 Money in the Bank ladder match. Here we go. I'm going to try to fly through this as quick as possible, but Ali revealed that he was booked to win the 2019 Men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Plans were changed last minute due to the surprise return of Brock Lesnar. Ali spilled the beans during a recent interview with Alex McCarthy of TalkSport. Again, this was 2021. He says, "We got nothing other than you're in the match the week of the Money in the Bank match. Day of, I'm winning it." That's what he was told. He was told that it was his for the taking. He goes, "Man, this is my moment. This is everything I've been working for. I can't believe it. This is awesome," Ali recalled. Again, this was also very important for Ali because, he missed out on that opportunity at Elimination Chamber, and here he was going to redeem himself, so to speak. He goes, "Then the match is about to start. So the entrances have started. I may be wrong about this, but Baron Corbin is making his entrance, and as soon as I'm about to make mine, that's when I get pulled that I have to go see the boss." Of course, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Ali then described his brief meeting with Vince McMahon, in which the WWE CEO informed Ali that plans had changed. McMahon told Ali that the new plan, told Ali about the new plan, and decided not to argue with him since the match was about to start. Goes on to say, as you might recall, Ali was on the verge of grabbing the briefcase before he was removed from the equation by the returning Brock Lesnar, who had suddenly came out. He was the surprise entrant in the match. Brock ended up grabbing the briefcase, winning the match in the process, crushing Ali's hopes and dreams. And now, isn't that all too ironic? Because, Brock didn't just crush Ali's dreams, but if you remember, the season premiere, the first episode of SmackDown, as we all know, what was it, October 2nd, 2019? No, October 4th, sorry. Dynamite, AEW Dynamite, was debut episode was October 2nd, 2019. You could go fact check me if you'd like. But anyway, I know that was a big week for pro wrestling. Anyway, if you remember, that was when Brock Lesnar came out and squashed Kofi on that debut episode. And so, long story short, even Kofi, who was having a great year in 2019, even Brock ruined that for him as well. So poor Ali. At least Kofi had something to show for it for a few months. But that after that, I feel as if that was kind of it for Ali. He pretty much showed, before we knew it, COVID hit. He would, explain his frustrations on Twitter, which I completely get. the injury he sustained during a very important time with the Elimination Chamber, he was supposed to be involved in, and then he was legitimately supposed to win Money in the Bank, and then Brock Lesnar returns, and whenever Brock's around, he usually gets what he wants, or they just book him to be the champ or number one contender. So, long story short, it's very unfortunate how Mustafa Ali's time in WWE went. To be completely honest with you guys, I don't even think he has anything to show for it as far as championships are concerned. I really don't. Let me look here. Okay, well, 2019 again, and I'll leave it at this. PWI in their top 500 wrestlers, of course, the 2023 just came out last week with the Shield in the top three: Rollins, Reigns, and Moxley. But in 2019, the top PWI top 500, Mustafa Ali was ranked number 55 in 2019. So that just goes to show you that he definitely had momentum. He cracked the top 100. He almost cracked the top 50. And so 2019, I really and truly believe was supposed to be Mustafa Ali's year, one way or another. And it's just very unfortunate. The past year or so, he's had a couple United States Championship opportunities, even an Intercontinental Championship opportunity where he lost to Gunther a few months ago. I believe it was when they were in Saudi. So all the best to Ali. If anybody's going to go to AEW right off the bat, I think it would be these first two people that I discussed. One being Dolph Ziggler and the other being Ali. So I think that would be great, great pickups for AEW, that's for sure. So next up here we have Emma. Now I'm going to tell you why I feel terrible for Emma. There's a few reasons here, and so let's talk about Elimination Chamber again. It was announced early Thursday that Elimination Chamber again is going to be in Australia. Their first time in Australia in nearly 6 years, come February 24th, 2024. Emma returned to the company 11 months ago after being away for about 6 years. So this was a really big deal. So at the timestamp is very important here. So at 10:05 a.m., Emma reposted the graphic of Elimination Chamber saying "A Dream" at WWE. That was 10:05 a.m. 10:49 a.m., the very same morning, she retweets it and writes, "Oops, never mind. I just got released. I am no longer with WWE." That's horrible. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, as much as Mustafa Ali being released in the midst of a storyline, getting a championship opportunity in a week and a half's time against Dom at No Mercy, this one hurts even more, because even though Emma wasn't being booked, and when she was being booked, she was booked absolutely terribly. We all know that. That's horrible. She was so excited, ecstatic, and just imagine that, getting that news, and then literally probably 10, 20, not even 30 minutes later, getting that phone call. Like, you can't be serious. This is horrible. So I really feel for Emma. Although there's a lot of other Aussies out there that will be probably involved in the Elimination Chamber, or at least making the trip. You got Rhea Ripley, of course, the WWE Women's Champion, Women's World Champion. You got Bronson Reed, Indy Hartwell, Grayson Waller, Zion Quinn, which is kind of funny because Grayson Waller, just at Money in the Bank at the beginning of July, came out and confronted John Cena when John Cena was pandering to the London crowd, talking about how they deserve a WrestleMania. And that was when Grayson Waller came out and said Australia deserves a WrestleMania. And I'll tell you what, Australia didn't get Mania yet. Maybe one of these years, but at least they got a pay-per-view, a premium live event in Elimination Chamber. That's a really big deal. So anyway, let's go over Emma's tenure real quick, the last 11 months. Emma, 5 SmackDown matches, 0-5. 2 Raw matches, 0-2. 4 main event matches, 1-3. This was her first Rumble appearance. And as a matter of fact, that was her only premium live event appearance throughout the course of 2023. In total, Emma won 1 TV match and had 13 TV matches during her 11-month run with WWE. And that one win was on Main Event, which, let's be honest, nobody really watches that. That's on Peacock or WWE Network if you're international. And that was her only victory. So my heart bleeds for Emma. I really feel terrible for her. And it's just really terrible. And by the way, I got this information from somebody on Twitter @whoisvindictive. So thank you for those fun facts. Well, not so fun facts. They're just facts. Nothing fun about that. So yeah, Emma, that's horrible. And I don't know, to make you snicker a little bit during this, I suppose. Let's talk about Nia Jax for a minute. What I also found out was when I was reading about, the Aussies, or the people, the men and women that are from Australia. Believe it or not, Nia Jax, born in Australia as well. Like it or not, folks. Um, she was born in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. And to elaborate on that, although she was raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, she is German and Samoan. And she is also the second cousin, once removed, of Dwayne The Rock Johnson, as her father, Joseph, was Johnson's grandfather, Peter Maivi's cousin. You got that? I had to read that about 10 times. I'm still a little confused, so we're just going to move on from that there. But I figured that was worth mentioning. So that's unfortunate. Shout out to Emma. I know she'll definitely land on her feet. She did great uh, with Impact the last several years after she left WWE. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, although I don't believe she's ever held any WWE gold, which is pretty shocking that even during her first time in NXT and on the main roster, she hasn't won anything. But her only notable championships, I believe, is she was an Impact Knockouts World Tag Team Champion one time with Madison Rayne. I think that may have even been 2022 or late 2021. So I could see her returning there. That's a very good division. Hey, maybe even AEW. I mean, the AEW Women's World Champion Saraya, formerly known as Paige, added Emma on Twitter. So maybe she's saying, "Hey, you want a shot at the champ?" So I think that would be cool. That'd be very nice too. Nice gesture by Saraya. So shout out to her. Let's talk about her fiance, Riddick Moss, aka Madcap Moss. They've been, I believe he proposed to her back in June, and we haven't seen them on television. I want to say since maybe late winter. They had a mixed tag team match, I feel, with Karrion Kross and Scarlett, and I feel like we haven't seen them since. So I don't know what the deal is with that. His only list of accolades, he's a former 24/7 champion at one time, and he was actually in 2022 the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale winner. But outside of that, 2023 was no good for Moss, and we'll see if he continues to pursue wrestling. I think he should. I was really pulling for him. I thought he had a significant run in 2022 alongside Baron Corbin for a while. But after that, that was pretty much it. Let's talk about number 5 here. We have Rick Boogs. Now, Rick Boogs, man, 2021, 2022, this was probably Pat McAfee's favorite entrance. Well, I know it was. When he was commentating on Smackdown, he would literally get up on the announcer's desk, get right on the commentary table, and do the air guitar when Rick Boogs was out there with his electric guitar doing the introduction, the entrance music for Shinsuke Nakamura, which is pretty cool. Now, you got to remember WrestleMania 38 last year in Dallas, Texas. It's when he actually tore his quadricep. He was out for a very long time, came back the beginning of this year, I believe. It's either late 22, early 23. And he was actually teaming up with Elias for a little bit. They had a little back and forth, which was pretty cool because Elias, he plays the acoustic guitar. Rick Boogs plays the electric guitar. And so I was really wondering where they were going from there from a musician standpoint. But nothing really came of it. Nothing really came of it. So I wonder, what's in store for Rick Boogs. Is he going to continue to wrestle or what? I know he posted a video on Twitter. Looked like he had every weight on the gym on his barbell. Little added motivation. So I know he's going to do something big post this WWE run, whether that be wrestling or something else. We'll see. But shout out to Rick Boogs. He is also a 2-time WWE 24/7 champion. I know that title is retired and not many took it serious, but hey, it's something, right? So speaking of Elias was also released, somebody we haven't seen on television in a very, very long time. It's unfortunate, it really is. I think a lot of us would agree that he had a better run as Ezekiel in 2022. At least he got to team up with one Cody Rhodes, returning Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton, and even got some singles victories himself. I think he may have even beaten Chad Gable. I know he was going up against the Alpha Academy for a while when they were running heel. So it's unfortunate, man. I walked with Elias for years, and he was on the main roster. Geez, I want to say like 5-6 years easy. As a matter of fact, he's a former 4-time 24/7 champion as well. And back in 2018, speaking of the PWI Top 500 in 2018, he was ranked number 69. So that's a pretty big deal. Much like Ali in 2019, being ranked, what was he, roughly 55 or so. When these guys early on in their main roster tenure really had some momentum behind them, and WWE just decided to drop the ball. I mean, Elias had a great look. He was obviously very funny on the microphone. Great artist as well, you could say. Um, so yeah, that's just very unfortunate. I believe I had a tweet here from him. Elias wrote, "From drifting onto the scene when he was the Drifter in NXT, to WrestleMania with John Cena and The Undertaker, to millions around the world for years walking with Elias, a #1 iTunes album, and to being my own younger brother, Zeke." Finally admitted it. He always said Elias and Zeke were two different people. We all knew. Even though Ezekiel had a better run for his short time, Elias was just way cooler. His presentation, the whole gimmick, playing the acoustic guitar in the center of the ring, it was great. And all while traveling the world, it's been a blast. God is good. So shout out to Elias, man. All the best to him. Again, who knows? A lot of these people I feel aren't going to stay in the wrestling realm. I feel like there may be a handful out of these roughly 20 or so people that were released. I could probably see only about maybe 4 to 6 sticking with it. I honestly don't see a large majority of these people staying with it. Not that they're not capable, but I just don't know if it's really their thing anymore. So that was pretty much as far as Elias was concerned. Again, we had 9 people here. I'm on number 7. We're going to talk about Aaliyah. Now, this was actually the second name that I noticed on Twitter. I said, what are they doing? Like some type of alphabetical order thing. We had Ali, now Aaliyah. And she went on to write on Twitter, "As of today, I am no longer a part of WWE." So that was sad to see. You know, we haven't seen her, I want to say, in at least a year. I know initially she went out with some kind of an injury, but you got to remember that back in 2022, probably a month or two after Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of the company, they finally had that tournament for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. So we had the team of Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah. I believe they defeated Damage Control, if I'm not mistaken, Io Sky and Dakota Kai, who eventually sought revenge and won those titles back from them just probably a few weeks later. So she's a former one-time WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. That's about it for Aaliyah as far as her resume is concerned. Can't take that away from her. And so shout out to Aaliyah, man. See what happens there. Top Dollar. Top Dollar was released for the second time in 2 years. Although B-Fab and Ashante the Adonis at this very moment in time have not been released from WWE, they seem to still be there. Top Dollar was the only one this time around that was in fact released. But back in November, I believe it was November 4th, 2021, B-Fab was initially released. Now at the time, Isaiah Swerve Scott, as he was called, now he's Swerve Strickland in AEW, but Isaiah Swerve Scott and the other two, Top Dollar and Ashante, all 3 of them were still on the WWE roster. That wasn't until about not even 2 weeks later, I think it was a few days before Thanksgiving of 2021, where the remainder of Hit Row was released. Now, you wouldn't see them until around August 12th of 2022 when they made their return to Smackdown. You got to see B-Fab, Ashante the Adonis, and Top Dollar, all 3 of them back. They refer to themselves now as the OG3, and that was because Swerve Strickland already committed to AEW back in March of 2022. So he had already been there for the better part of 6 months at this point, and is there to this at this very moment in time. Even though Strickland has made it known that him and I believe even Keith Lee were offered opportunities to come back to WWE back in 2022, but they declined and decided to stay with AEW. Good for them. And so Top Dollar for the second time is out. Will he remain wrestling? We'll see. The first time he was released, he was working the indies, just as he did before he came to WWE. It seemed like he was having a good time traveling the world and doing what he seems to love. You know, former NFL player and so on. He does the whole rap bit, so he's multidimensional. Whatever he does, all the best to Top Dollar. And last but certainly not least, as far as the morning and early afternoon releases that came out, was Shelton Benjamin. So as far as Shelton Benjamin goes, as sad as it is to see him go, you know, this was his second run with the company, I believe. They haven't been doing much with him the past year or two, right? Ever since really they got rid of the Hurt Business, who had a brief stint for time after time. We thought they were finally going to bring Lashley and Cedric and Shelton back together. And they teased it about a year ago, and they never stayed with it. So seeing Shelton go is unfortunate, but hopefully he goes and wrestles. I mean, if there's a third name from this list, I would love to see him continue to wrestle, you know, whether it's AEW, we'll see what happens. So Shelton went on Twitter and said, "I have been released from my WWE contract. I thank WWE staff, talent, and of course the fans for everything. Something ends, something new begins. Looking forward to my next chapter. Now, in addition to that, Kurt Angle went on and tweeted, Team Angle forever. Thank you, Shelton, for the memories. You're truly a badass, with a fist emoji. So that's, good to see. Getting some support from your peers, dating back to his early days with WWE. And, going over his resume real briefly before I say a few things in regards to Shelton Benjamin. He's a three-time WWE 24/7 champion. As of late, former United States champion during his initial run, three-time Intercontinental champion during that initial run as well. Also a three-time WWE Raw Tag Team champion, twice with Charlie Haas, and of course one with Cedric Alexander, that being on the Raw side of things back in 2021, when we all know that the Hurt Business was hotter than ever, and they decided to strip Shelton and Cedric of those Raw Tag Team Championships going into WrestleMania 37 in Tampa. Remember their first stadium show in the better part of a year since COVID. And I think they were truly robbed. As much as I like the New Day, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, I believe, were the ones who took those titles off of them going into Mania and dropping them to, I believe they lost those titles to AJ Styles and Omos at Raymond James Stadium. So that was a real fumble, I think. And I know, because regardless of the titles being dropped or whatever, and them not being on that stage, them not keeping the Hurt Business together was a big issue for a lot of people. They really had something there. And although it seems the last month or so, Bobby Lashley joining forces with the Street Profits in this new version, I guess you could say, of the Hurt Business on SmackDown is a great fit. I really do like it. It's just a shame because they could have really stretched out that time they had with Cedric and Shelton, because realistically, ever since they broke them up 2.5 years ago, after just being together a couple of months, we didn't see them two again. That tag team, you would see them once in a while come out on Main Event on Raw, and they're getting jobbed out. Just think, for months we were saying, oh, Bloodline and the Hurt Business, how cool would that be? Roman and the Usos, and you got Lashley, and then Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, who could most certainly hold their own. So that was real disappointment, to say the least. But shout out to of course Shelton Benjamin and whatever he decides to do, if he still thinks he has it, which I do believe he does have a few more years left in him. I hope he goes out there and shows the world he's still got it, because I really truly do think he does. So in regards to those 9 releases that took place earlier Thursday, that was pretty much that. So before I get to the second half of the releases that took place on Thursday evening, mainly NXT Performance Center people, a few people also from the main roster, I want to talk about this article in regards to Vince McMahon that I saw on Thursday. There was an Axios report for an SEC filing that hinted that Vince McMahon may leave WWE, SEC being Securities and Exchange Commission. A new SEC filing has shown light on a hint that Vince McMahon may want out of WWE after the recent acquisition by Endeavor that saw WWE merge with the UFC just last week. McMahon is still under investigation by the federal government, as a search warrant was served and executed by the feds after a federal grand jury signed off on a subpoena to McMahon on July 17th. However, no charges have been filed against him yet in connection to the payments about allegations of sexual misconduct and infidelity since 2006, as previously reported. Jacob Frankel, the chair of Dixon Wright's Government Investigations and Securities Enforcement Practice Group, say that 5 times fast, holy hell, and a former senior counsel in the SEC's Division of Enforcement, told the LA Times that McMahon could face criminal or civil liabilities that may force McMahon out of his WWE role. Wrapping this up in just a moment here. After the merger, McMahon holds 28.84 million TKO shares, currently valued at $3 billion. TKO noted in a regulatory filing that, and I quote, McMahon's membership on our board could expose us to negative publicity and or have other adverse financial and operational impacts on our business. His membership also may result in additional scrutiny or otherwise exacerbate the other risks described herein. Any of these outcomes could directly or indirectly have adverse financial and operational impacts on our business. And then it ends with this. McMahon was seen using a cane earlier in the week to get up the stairs to speak with WWE employees after having spinal surgery this past summer. That was that. Now, regardless what happens to Vince McMahon, I am glad for Endeavor or TKO Holdings, etc., who just purchased WWE last week, that they are standing firm, that they're not willing to put up with the shenanigans, and they're just not willing to put up with Vince's nonsense. Vince is, all the good he's done as far as pro wrestling and WWF over the years, and WWE, that's all great. But let's call it what it is right now, present day. Vince is power hungry. Most of us would agree that he should step away from the company for a number of reasons. It would be a much healthier environment, stay out of creative, and I could go on for days. But realistically, I'm glad that they're standing firm. And if there's enough scrutiny, regardless, if he's found guilty or not, I think the bottom line is it's even just this mere discussion of all of these things going on with Vince. I feel like it's casting this dark cloud over not just WWE but the company as a whole, and that's not what they want to have happen. Again, they're also overseeing UFC, as they've been for quite some time. So I'm very curious to keep a keen eye on that story, especially since last summer, last spring, when this all broke out, when Vince temporarily had stepped down and now has kind of bullied his way back, and only really sold to Endeavor so that he could, basically remain, right? That's one of the reasons he picked that company. He has a long-standing relationship with Ari Emanuel. So we'll see what happens there. Now let's get to these last releases that were very unfortunate to find out. We came to find out that Mace and Mansoor, or is it Mace and Mansoor, also known as, he was Mace in Retribution, and he was Mansoor. And then he became Mace and Mansoor, the two of them, about, a year and a half, 2 years ago, when they were repackaged as the Maximum Male Models, with Maxine Dupree and Max Dupree. Thank God he finally became LA Knight again from NXT. And Maxine Dupree, fortunately for her, was moved over a couple of months ago to Alpha Academy, which has worked wonders for, honestly, Chad Gable, Otis, and herself, just as far as presentation in a wrestling capacity, and really has, helped bolster them, I do believe. Adding a female to them was really a good look, instead of just having Otis, or Otis, as they were calling him, as Maxine would call Otis for months. It looked like for a while, late 2022, early 2023, that Otis was going to turn on Chad, leave Chad's side, join the Maximum Male Models, and, well, there you have it, folks. Thank God that didn't happen, because LA Knight is LA Knight. He's basically the top selling merch for active wrestlers, basically, in WWE for the most part. And Maxine Dupree no longer aligned with them. She's with Alpha Academy, but it is unfortunate, they were presented with a bad hand here. Prior to this, Mansoor, I believe he's of Saudi Arabian descent. Whenever they were in Saudi for the past couple of years, with the exception of 2023, he was like the damn Undertaker over there. Every time Mansoor went over there, not only was he booked in a significant match, whether it be a battle royal or a singles contest, etc., but Mansoor would always win. I believe he's like 5-0 over there, so he's well on his way. And they've only been going to Saudi for 5 years. So look, in the States, he may be a nobody as far as WWE booking was concerned, but over there, Mansoor is basically a god. And as far as Mace is concerned, he got dealt a bad hand at least twice that we know about, being put in this stable, Maximum Male Models. And then, of course, he was Mace in Retribution alongside, T-Bar, and Slapjack, and I forget the other names. Obviously, Ali was the head of that. And so that's all unfortunate. And so long story short, Mace went, I know Mansoor put out a video on Twitter, which I'm not going to sit here and read the subtitles of all that, but I will read the post that Mace put up. And by the way, Mansoor looked absolutely jacked in that video, so he's been working out behind the scenes, and I think he wrote something along the lines that we have not seen the last of him. So I'm sure Mansoor will be wrestling, post WWE. And so Mace wrote, "After almost 10 years of making something out of nothing, I'm excited to spread my wings and be myself for the first time. Let's take this anime reference to the next level, step into the grand tour," in capital letters. And then he wrote, "Please support us on Twitch tonight at 8:30. And so that was pretty much that. All the best to Mace and Mansoor, or Mace and Mansoor, whatever they do. Now, this came as a bit of a surprise. An NXT talent, she's been teaming with Valentina Feroz for at least a year or two, I believe, in a tag team capacity. They even made an appearance on Smackdown a few months ago. But Yulisa Leon has been released by WWE. I was pretty surprised to hear about this. So as far as I know, Valentina is still employed with WWE and on NXT. So I guess she'll just be pushing a singles sense. So That was unfortunate. Formerly known as Commander Aziz Dabakato also has been released from WWE. Of course, he was Commander Aziz a couple of years ago alongside Apollo when he was doing the whole Nigerian gimmick on Monday Night Raw. But now he was Dabakato the last few months on NXT television, back to what he was in the first place, and they got rid of him. I'm not very familiar with this guy, Bryson Montana. He went on and wrote that his WWE run has come to an end. So shout out to him. That's very unfortunate. We'll see what happens with his future. We also found out that Shanky has been released by WWE. Now, Shanky, just a couple weeks ago, I believe Superstar Spectacle that was in India, I believe he went up against Gunther for an Intercontinental Championship opportunity. So there's two ways you could look at it. You could, of course, look at it that, they held on to him until they went to India. Of course, him being one of the guys at the forefront other than Indish Shear and Jinder Mahal. And then they pretty much disposed of him after they went to India. And you could also look at it as he got a great opportunity in India against the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, Gunther, who just surpassed that record a week and a half ago. So shout out to Shanky. We'll see what happens with him. Also, Quincy Elliott, who's been on NXT a lot. Well, not a lot, but a few times here and there throughout the duration of late 2022, early 2023. He was released. The day had finally come for Dana Brooke. Now, say what you want about Dana Brooke. I know a lot of people dislike her, and that's an understatement. I personally had no problem with Dana Brooke. Look, is she the best wrestler in the world? Of course not. But I think she's greatly improved over the years. I really do. From gimmick standpoint, from a wrestling standpoint, and she always, no matter how they booked her, she was always really willing to get right back up. And she always stayed in the thick of things. So shout out to Dana Brooke, also a former 24/7 champion. I think one of the last ones actually before they retired the title last year. So whatever she decides to do, if she remains in pro wrestling, we'll see. She could be a big factor in that Impact Women's division, that locker room. That's always a good place to get back on your feet and stay in the thick of things and even be in title contention, whether it's tag or singles, whatever. So, shout out to Dana Brooke. She dodged cuts for years. We thought, because as significant as these cuts were Thursday, there was a couple, big names, quote unquote, but the cuts we've seen over the last couple of years in 2021 and 2022 specifically, there were some big names that were gone from the company that people were literally jaw dropped. Could not believe it. Just a few that come to mind, like Bray Wyatt and Aleister Black, just to name a couple. So Dana Brooke dodged all those cuts, and her time had come. And it sucks because she was just much like Ali. She was finally getting some TV opportunity on NXT as of late, and she was alongside Kalani Jordan. It seemed as if she was in the midst of going from babyface to turning heel. It seemed like any week now she was going to turn on Kalani Jordan. So that's a shame. Shout out to Dana Brooke. You got my full support and respect over here. Now I know there was a couple others that were let go, and before I get to that, some other positive words that also were said on Twitter throughout the day from the wrestling community. Dustin Rhodes, we all know Dustin Rhodes, the Natural, or formerly known as Goldust. He wrote, always, always, when one door closes, another one opens. Hashtag keep stepping. Also, we got some positive words here from Dijak, formerly known as T-Bar, Dominic Dijakovic. Dijak, of course, being T-Bar with Mace in Retribution. He retweeted the comment that I had read to you just a few minutes ago from Mace, with Mace and Mansoor. He wrote, "These guys are two of my best friends in the world. While I am sad to see them go, I'm excited to see them flourish because they are two of the most creative and best pro wrestlers on earth. Forever grateful that I got to work with them so much on TV. Can't wait for the live stream," which took place later in the night, Thursday night. And then some positive words from Mike Bennett. You all know Mike Bennett, the Miracle Mike Bennett on Impact, Ring of Honor as of late, AEW television. Of course, he was with, that's the husband of Maria Kanellis. He was called Mike Kanellis on WWE, even though that run didn't go that great. I believe they debuted Extreme Rules 2017 around that time. They were there for a couple of years on and off. But anyway, he's doing his thing with AEW, and the Kingdom, again, reunited with Matt Taven, and Maria's there, and they're in the whole storyline with Roderick Strong and Adam Cole. For my AEW fans out there, Ring of Honor fans, you're in the know. Anyway, long story short, he wrote, "Today can be the worst day of your life, or it can be the day that everything changed. Today can be the finish line, or it can be the starting line." It's all up to you. Remember that phone call, but don't let it define you. Your talent and your value is not determined by one person or company. Put your head down, ignore everything you hear, and just get back to work. Immediately getting to work on that next thing in your life is a great way to deal with the emotional roller coaster you are inevitably going to feel. You can't control what just happened, but you absolutely can control how you respond to it. It's day one, but you're not starting over. And then he ended it with, you have new knowledge and experience and equity that you've built over the years. It's day one of the next phase of your life. I love y'all. So that was absolutely great. I loved every bit of that, not just from a pro wrestling standpoint and supporting his peers and his friends, but that's life advice, right? I think we all could use that on any given day, realistically. Um, so let's get back to the remaining cuts that took place here. Now, I did see that there was a couple people from the Performance Center just getting acquainted on NXT television. Now, Alexis Gray, not very familiar with her, but she confirmed she is no longer with WWE. She confirmed her departure on social media. And Gray is a former sprinter who represented the Bahamas national team. She was announced as part of the 2023 Performance Center rookie class and never got to make her in-ring debut. So that's unfortunate. I know on Twitter she was asking, what now, or where should I go now? And by the way, I did stumble upon a tweet from Alexis Gray that went on to say, at the end of the day, I put in the work. She wrote that in caps. Every day that I went in that place, I have never wrestled in my whole life, but that did not stop me from showing that I can be one of the world's greatest superstars. Now that I've found this new passion, I won't stop. I'll just take another way. So she wrote that Thursday night, shortly after finding out the news. And all the best to her, man. Honestly, I think that's great that she's passionate about it. Really looking forward to seeing where she takes off with her career. Now, I believe that this is the last one that I had stumbled upon. There may have been a couple others, so I do apologize if I missed anybody on this list of cuts, whether it's NXT, Performance Center, etc., that took place Thursday evening. But Brooke Vaughter, her name is Brooke Vaughter, but her wrestling name was Brooklyn Barlow. She was released by WWE as well. Again, don't know much about her at all. I know she's made a few appearances, if not on NXT, specifically on the Level Up show that is also taped either before or after NXT shows on Tuesday. So, shout out to her too. Hopefully she sticks with it. Now, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com went on to say that 90-day non-compete clauses for most of the releases per usual. So that means, of course, all these people that were let go on the 21st, around the 20th, 21st of December, they'll be allowed to go on and, pursue their wrestling careers, regardless where it is, whether it's in the States, internationally, wherever. So you could expect to see them before year's end be eligible to go elsewhere and do the damn thing. So before I wrap up today's show, I want to end off on a high note. We've talked about a lot of WWE releases, very unfortunate news. But I want to talk about the silver lining before I get out of here. And that was one Johnny Gargano who retweeted after the news came out from, the announcement of WWE Elimination Chamber 2024 this February, taking place in Australia. Again, first time in 6 years they'll be heading over there. And there was two things I learned, right? There was two things I learned. And first and foremost, Johnny Gargano had a side-by-side picture of when he was in the Elimination Chamber this past year. He wrote, my Elimination Chamber gear last year was foreshadowing, obviously. And he had a couple cartoon images on these pictures of the cartoon Bluey. If you have young children, you've heard of Bluey. And apparently he had Bluey-inspired gear. I know he has a son himself. I think his son will be 2 sometime soon. I think January his son will be 2. But anyway, two things I found out, okay? I found out on Thursday that the cartoon Bluey, which, by the way, my daughter does have a Bluey doll, thanks to one of my very good friends who bought her one for her first birthday. Bluey is Australian. So I get the reference there. Not only did Gargano wear this awesome Bluey-inspired gear at Elimination Chamber last year, ironically enough, but Bluey is Australian, and Bluey is a girl. All this time, for the last 10 months, since my daughter got that doll, we've watched the show a few times, but mainly just plays around with the doll. But this whole time, I was just assuming, silly me, Bluey. I just assumed, color blue. Even the way it was speaking, I thought it was a boy. My fault. And I had to go to IMDb to get the breakdown here, and it says, the slice of life adventures of an Australian blue heeler cattle dog puppy as she has fun with her family and friends in everyday situations. So I was shocked. Again, you could tell I really don't watch the show. because if I did, I'm sure I would have picked up on this by now. But she, see, here I go again. She is Australian, and well, how about that? You learn something new every day. So I did find that very funny that Gargano did write that, and I never noticed. Of course, I didn't notice the gear too. Gargano always, much like a lot of wrestlers in numerous companies, I love when they do themed gear. Adam Cole's another one that comes to mind. They even at the same time, even times when they would wrestle one another in NXT a few years back, Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole always had very cool gear. But I'll leave you guys with that. So hopefully maybe some of you knew that. Maybe some of you have no idea who the hell Bluey is. And so that's that. But I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in with me today on the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Dineen. That was everything WWE of the last 24 plus hours or so. Maybe by the time this video ends, maybe there will be some more breaking news. Whether it's Vince McMahon, whether it's a new announcement for a new destination for another PLE for WWE, maybe another $1 billion deal for WWE. I'm okay with any of that news. Let's just hope that there are no more WWE releases, any releases in pro wrestling, in the whole world of pro wrestling. I hate to see it. I really do. Sometimes, some of these men and women are happy temporarily because it's new opportunities. Maybe they've been trying to get out of these contracts and they just can't, want to start anew, whether that's a new company, just work the independents. Hey, it's worked out for some. It really has. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry to hear anybody losing their job, of course. But hopefully that will be the last releases and cuts we hear for a very long time. So again, thank you for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.